There's something deeply troubling that's been happening in Jamaica. We're seeing a rise in violence against children. And frankly, it's a crisis. It's got families living in fear, communities grieving, and the whole nation is just desperately searching for answers.
And it all boils down to one central, really painful question, a question that you're hearing in homes and seeing in headlines all over the island. What kind of person could possibly harm a child?
You know, to even start to wrap our heads around something like this, we have to turn to psychology, and specifically to this concept called psychopathy. Based on the work of psychologist Robert D. Hare, it's basically a personality disorder where someone has a profound, and I mean profound, lack of empathy, guilt, or any kind of moral compass. It's a tough lens to look through, but it's pretty necessary for understanding these acts of extreme cruelty.
So, what does that actually look like in a person? Let's try to peel back the layers here and get a look inside the mind without a conscience. Let's break down the anatomy of a psychopath. And here's where it gets really unsettling. According to Hare's research, these individuals are not always the monsters you imagine hiding in the dark. No, on the surface, they can be incredibly charming. They can sound brilliant and seem totally normal. But underneath that shiny exterior, there's just a void, a complete absence of the emotions that really make us human.
This whole profile is built on a few core traits. You have glib charm, which isn't just being friendly, it's this slick, superficial act they use to manipulate people. Then there's pathological lying. They lie constantly, a lot of the time for no reason at all, and they don't care if they get caught. But the absolute core of it all is the lack of empathy and the total absence of remorse or guilt. They just don't feel other people's pain, and that's what allows them to be so incredibly manipulative and controlling.
So you've got this stark contrast, right? It's like two different people in one. There's the mask they wear for everyone to see, the charming, intelligent, even likable person. But the reality on the inside? It's cold, remorseless, and just completely incapable of genuine love or connection. They are, quite literally, without conscience.
So this obviously leads to a huge question, one that has massive implications for our justice system and for mental health. Can they be treated? Can people like this ever really, truly change?
Well, the scientific consensus here is pretty sobering. Psychopathy really seems to be a deep-seated condition. It's not a choice or some moral failing that you can just fix with therapy. Because they fundamentally lack the ability to feel empathy, the usual treatments just don't work. In fact, some studies even suggest that therapy can backfire. It can accidentally teach them how to pretend to have emotions even better, making them even more dangerous manipulators. It is just highly, highly resistant to change.
But, and this is so important, we can't just stop there. While psychopathy gives us one piece of the puzzle, it would be a huge oversimplification to blame this entire crisis on just one psychological condition. We've got to step back and look at the bigger picture. When you look at all the factors at play, you see it's a much more complex problem. Yeah, individual psychology plays a role, for sure, but that's just one slice. You've also got these broader social factors, like communities breaking down. Then you pile on a huge economic pressures that are straining families to the breaking point. And on top of that, there are serious gaps in our systems that are supposed to protect kids. You see how all these things can come together to create a kind of perfect storm of risk?
Okay, so what do we do with all this information? Where does this leave us? Understanding the problem is the first step, absolutely. But that understanding has to lead to real, concrete action. We need to figure out a path forward. One of the most powerful ways to think about this is to treat it like a public health crisis. That means we shift the focus from just reacting after something terrible happens to trying to prevent it from happening at all. That really means three things. First, prevention. We're talking early intervention programs and education. Second, protection. We have to strengthen the systems designed to keep kids safe. And third, support. Making sure the communities and victims get the resources they need to heal. See, this isn't just about punishment. It's about building a society where these tragedies are way less likely to happen in the first place. So, in the end, we're left with this profound and incredibly difficult challenge. And it's not just a question for the police or for psychologists. It's a question for every single one of us. How do we, as a society, protect our most vulnerable people from those who feel nothing at all?